I destroyed my best friend's marriage, and the worst part is, I don't know if I regret it. My name is Sophia, I'm 32 years old, and 6 months ago I made a decision that changed 3 lives forever. I arrived in Munich with nothing but a suitcase, a heart full of hope, and documents that weren't exactly legal. What I didn't expect was that the person who would save me would also be the person I would betray in the most devastating way possible. Let me start from the beginning, when things still made sense. I grew up in a small town in Texas, one of those places where everyone knows everyone, and opportunities are as rare as snow in summer. I had always dreamed of a different life, of seeing the world, of being more than just another face in the crowd. When my visa application to work in Europe was denied for the 3rd time, I felt something break inside me. That's when I met Marco, a consultant who promised he could get me documents to work in Germany. It wasn't exactly legal, but I was desperate. I sold everything I had, said goodbye to my family with lies about a job opportunity, and boarded a plane to Munich with papers that could fall apart at any inspection. The first week was hell. I didn't speak German, I didn't know anyone, and I lived in constant fear that someone would discover my situation. That's when I met Petra at a cafe near the central station. She was Brazilian, like me, originally from immigrant parents, and had that welcoming warmth that only those who have already been lost in a foreign country can have. Petra took me under her wing without asking many questions. She offered me a place to stay in the apartment she shared with her husband, helped me find odd jobs that didn't require documentation, and became the sister I never had. If you're enjoying this story and want to hear more real tales like this, hit that subscribe button right now. You won't regret it. Petra's husband was Thomas. The first time I saw him, I felt something I tried to ignore. He was tall, with dark hair always slightly messy, eyes that seemed to see right through you, and that smile. That smile that made you feel like you were the only person in the room. But he was my friend's husband. He was off limits. I repeated this to myself every morning when I woke up on their couch, every night when we had dinner together, every moment he looked at me for a second too long. The first 2 months were bearable. I worked cleaning houses, washing dishes in restaurants, anything that paid cash. Petra and Thomas seemed happy, or at least that's what I wanted to believe. But living with a couple is like having a front row seat to a play you didn't ask to watch. I started noticing the cracks, the conversations that ended abruptly when I entered the room, the nights Petra cried in the bathroom thinking no one could hear, the way Thomas looked at his phone with an expression I couldn't decipher. One night, Petra went to visit her mother in Hamburg for a week. It was supposed to be a routine trip, a chance for her to reconnect with her family. Thomas and I were left alone in the apartment, and that's when everything started to fall apart. The first night, we ordered pizza and watched a movie. Nothing inappropriate, nothing that crossed any lines. But there was an electricity in the air, a tension that made every accidental touch feel like fire on my skin. The second night, Thomas opened a bottle of wine. We talked for hours about life, dreams, frustrations. He told me that he and Petra had been growing apart for years, that they had married too young, that he felt trapped in a life he didn't choose. I should have stopped him. I should have gone to my room, but I didn't. I stayed there listening, letting his words wrap around me like a blanket on a cold night. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss a story. Trust me, what comes next will leave you speechless. The third night it happened. Not what you're thinking, not yet. But something shifted. We were in the kitchen, and he was teaching me how to make some traditional German dish. Our hands touched, reaching for the same utensil, and neither of us pulled away. We looked at each other, and in that moment, I knew. I knew we were about to cross a line that couldn't be uncrossed. He leaned in slowly, giving me time to pull back. But I didn't. Our lips met in a kiss that felt like coming home and committing the worst betrayal at the same time. What followed was a week of stolen moments, whispered conversations, and guilt that ate at me from the inside. We didn't sleep together, not in the physical sense, but emotionally. We had already gone further than I ever should have allowed. When Petra returned, the guilt nearly consumed me. I couldn't look her in the eye. Every hug, every thank you for everything, felt like another knife in my back. But here's the thing about forbidden connections. They don't just disappear because you want them to. Thomas and I tried to keep our distance. We really did. But in that small apartment, it was impossible. Every glance was loaded with meaning. Every accidental touch sent electricity through my body. And Petra, sweet, trusting Petra, had no idea that her best friend and her husband were fighting an attraction that grew stronger every day. The tension became unbearable. I started looking for another place to live, but without proper documents, finding something affordable and safe was nearly impossible. Meanwhile, Thomas and Petra's fights became more frequent. She accused him of being distant, of not caring about their marriage anymore, and she was right, but for all the wrong reasons. If this story is keeping you on the edge of your seat, make sure you're subscribed. Hit that button because it gets even more complicated from here. 3 months after that first kiss, everything exploded. Petra found a text message on Thomas's phone. It was from me, something innocent about picking up groceries, but the way he had saved my contact, with a heart emoji, gave us away. She confronted me first, tears streaming down her face, asking me if there was something going on between Thomas and me. I had 2 choices: lie to my friend or destroy her with the truth. I chose the coward's way. I lied. I told her she was imagining things, that Thomas and I were just friends, that the heart emoji meant nothing. She wanted to believe me so badly that she accepted my explanation, even though I could see the doubt lingering in her eyes. But that night, she confronted Thomas, and unlike me, he couldn't lie to her face. He told her everything. Well, almost everything. He admitted to the emotional connection, to the kiss, to the feelings he had developed for me. But he minimized it, made it sound like a moment of weakness rather than the profound connection it had become. Petra threw him out that night. The sound of their screaming woke me up, and I lay on that couch, paralyzed with shame, listening to my best friend's world crumble because of me. When Thomas left, Petra came to the living room. I expected rage, screaming, maybe even physical violence. What I got was worse. She looked at me with such profound disappointment and asked quietly, "How could you?" I had no answer. What could I possibly say that would make any of it okay? She told me I had 3 days to find somewhere else to live, 3 days to get out of her life forever. I spent those 3 days frantically calling everyone I could think of, but finding housing without proper documentation in Munich is nearly impossible. On the 3rd day, with nowhere else to go, Thomas showed up with an offer that would seal all our fates. Make sure you're subscribed because you need to hear what happened next. This is where everything truly goes off the rails. He had rented a small studio apartment on the other side of the city. He told me I could stay there, that he would pay the first few months' rent until I got on my feet. I knew accepting would be crossing yet another line. I knew it would confirm every suspicion Petra had about us, but I was desperate, undocumented, and running out of options. So I said yes. Moving into that apartment felt like stepping into an alternate reality where Petra didn't exist, where guilt couldn't reach us, where we could finally explore what was between us without hiding. And for a few weeks, it was everything I had imagined and nothing I had expected. Thomas and I spent every free moment together. We talked about everything and nothing. We cooked together, explored the city, stayed up until dawn discussing philosophy and dreams and all the things that made us who we were. But reality has a way of creeping back in. Petra started calling Thomas, begging him to come back, to work on their marriage, to remember the 10 years they had built together. She sent me messages too, bitter and heartbroken, calling me things I probably deserved to be called. The guilt that I had managed to suppress came roaring back with a vengeance. Every happy moment with Thomas was tainted by the knowledge of what it had cost. Then came the night that changed everything again. Thomas came home looking shattered. Petra had shown up at his office, made a scene in front of his colleagues, threatened to tell his boss about his personal life drama. She was unraveling. And it was our fault. That night, Thomas and I had our first real fight. He said maybe we had made a mistake, that maybe the connection we felt wasn't worth destroying Petra. I felt my world tilting. After everything I had sacrificed, everything I had lost, he was having second thoughts? Subscribe right now if you want to know how this all ends. I promise you won't see it coming. The next few weeks were torture. Thomas started spending more time away from the apartment, taking Petra's calls in private, coming home late with weak excuses. I felt myself becoming the other woman, the side piece, the person someone sees when they want to escape their real life. It was humiliating and heartbreaking in equal measure. I had lost my best friend for a man who might not even choose me in the end. My immigration status was another constant source of stress. Every time I saw a police officer, my heart would race. Every time someone asked for my ID, I would freeze. I was living in a constant state of anxiety, dependent on a man who was clearly torn between two women, in a country where I had no legal right to be. Then Petra found out about the apartment. I don't know how, maybe Thomas slipped up, maybe she hired someone to follow him, but she found out. And she showed up at our door at 2 a.m, drunk and devastated. The scene that followed was something out of a nightmare. She screamed, she cried, she threw things. She told us we were selfish, that we had destroyed her life for a fantasy that would never last. She looked at me with such hatred and said something I'll never forget. "You came here with nothing and you took everything from me. I hope it was worth it." After she left, Thomas and I sat in silence for hours. The weight of what we had done, who we had hurt, felt crushing. He held my hand, but it felt different now, tainted by reality rather than floating in our bubble of denial. That's when he said it. "I need time to figure out what I want." Those words broke something in me. I had given up everything for him, had destroyed my closest friendship, had put myself in legal jeopardy, and now he needed time? But what could I say? I had no right to demand anything. I was the other woman, the homewrecker, the villain in this story. If you haven't subscribed yet, do it now. You need to hear how this impossible situation resolves. Thomas moved back in with Petra 2 weeks later. He said he needed to give their marriage a real chance, that he owed her that much after 10 years together. He promised to still pay my rent, to help me figure out my documentation issues, to remain friends. Friends. After everything, he wanted to be friends. I felt numb. I had lost everything and gained nothing. But here's where the story takes another turn. A month after Thomas went back to Petra, he showed up at my apartment at midnight. He was crying, something I had never seen before. Petra had kicked him out again after finding out he had been secretly visiting me, bringing me groceries, checking in on me. She had given him an ultimatum: cut me out of his life completely or lose her forever. And he chose me. He showed up with 2 suitcases and a confession. He told me that every moment with Petra felt like living a lie, that he had tried to force himself to feel what he once felt but couldn't. He said that what we had was real, complicated and messy and destructive, but real. He asked if he could stay with me, if we could try to build something from the ruins we had created, and I said yes. Of course I said yes, because despite everything, despite the guilt and the shame and the knowledge that we had hurt someone deeply, I loved him. I had loved him from that first night in the kitchen, and I had never stopped. That was 3 months ago. Thomas officially filed for divorce last week. Petra has blocked both of us on everything. I still don't have proper documentation, and every day is a struggle to stay afloat in this country that isn't quite home but isn't quite foreign anymore either. Thomas and I are trying to build a relationship on a foundation of betrayal, and I don't know if that's something that can ever be stable. Some days I wake up happy, wrapped in Thomas's arms, feeling like maybe we can make this work. Other days I wake up drowning in guilt, seeing Petra's face when she realized what we had done, wondering if a love born from such destruction can ever truly be pure. Thomas says we can't change the past, that we can only move forward, that what we have is worth fighting for. But is it? Before I finish, I need you to subscribe to this channel. Your support means everything, and I share these stories because I know I'm not alone in making complicated choices. I lost my best friend. She won't talk to me, won't even acknowledge my existence. I see her sometimes, from a distance, in the city. She looks thinner, sadder, like a piece of her is missing. And I did that. Thomas and I did that together. But I also found love, or at least something that feels like love. Is that enough? Can love justify the pain we cause others? My family back in Texas still thinks I have a great job and a perfect life in Germany. They don't know I'm undocumented, that I'm living with a man who left his wife for me, that I destroyed a friendship for a chance at happiness. Sometimes I wonder what they would think if they knew the truth. Would they understand? Would they judge me? Or would they just be disappointed? Thomas tells me we'll figure out the documentation issue, that he'll marry me if that's what it takes to make me legal here. But marriage born from necessity rather than choice feels like another betrayal. Another compromise of something that should be pure. And what about Petra? She lost a husband and a best friend in one devastating blow. She's alone in a city that can be cold and unwelcoming, dealing with the trauma we caused. The apartment we live in now is small but cozy. We've decorated it with plants and secondhand furniture, trying to make it feel like home. Some evenings, when Thomas comes back from work and wraps his arms around me, I can almost convince myself that this is okay, that we deserve happiness too, that love doesn't have to follow rules to be real. But then night comes, and with it, the dreams. Dreams where Petra finds me, confronts me, asks me again, "How could you?" And I wake up with no answer, just like the first time. Make sure you're subscribed because I share updates on my life, and trust me, this story isn't over yet. Thomas's divorce proceedings are bitter. Petra is fighting him on everything. The apartment they shared, their savings, even the furniture. Her lawyer is aggressive, and I can't blame her. She's channeling her pain into anger, and we're the targets. Thomas comes home exhausted from meetings with lawyers, from Petra's accusations, from the weight of what unraveling a 10-year marriage actually means. And I wonder, is he going to resent me for this someday? When the passion fades and reality sets in, will he look at me and see the person who cost him everything? I've started therapy, paid for in cash, with a therapist who doesn't ask too many questions about my legal status. She tells me I need to forgive myself, that humans make mistakes, that love is complicated. But how do you forgive yourself for knowingly hurting someone who only showed you kindness? Petra took me in when I had nothing. She fed me, housed me, treated me like family, and I repaid her by falling in love with her husband. The immigrant community here whispers about me. Word spreads fast in small circles, and everyone knows I'm the woman who broke up Petra's marriage. I see the judgment in their eyes at the Brazilian market, at the community center, at church on Sundays. I've become a cautionary tale, the woman other wives warn their husbands about. The isolation is suffocating sometimes. Thomas doesn't understand this part of it. As a German citizen, he moves through the world with a freedom I can't imagine. He doesn't know what it's like to be undocumented, to be judged by your own community, to wonder if every knock on the door is immigration enforcement. He tries to be supportive, but there's a gulf between us that love can't entirely bridge. My documentation situation is getting more complicated. The fake papers I bought are expiring soon, and Marco, the consultant who got them for me, has disappeared. Thomas has been researching legal ways to fix my status, but every option seems impossible. Marriage would help, but the authorities scrutinize these cases carefully, especially when one party has been living illegally. There's a real possibility I might have to leave Germany, might have to give up everything I've built here, including Thomas. If you're still watching, hit that subscribe button. I need to know I'm not alone in this mess. Last week, something unexpected happened. I ran into Petra at a grocery store. We both froze. For a moment, I thought she would scream at me, cause a scene, unleash all the pain we had caused her. Instead, she just looked at me, and I saw something in her eyes I didn't expect. Pity. Not anger, not hatred, but pity. She said quietly, "You think you won something, but you didn't. You just inherited my problems." And then she walked away, leaving me standing there with a cart full of groceries and a heart full of questions. What did she mean? Was she talking about Thomas's flaws that I was only beginning to discover? The way he shuts down during conflict? His tendency to avoid difficult conversations? The financial stress he never mentioned while married? Or was she talking about something deeper, about the fundamental impossibility of building happiness on someone else's pain? That encounter haunted me for days. Thomas noticed my distance but didn't push, which is typical of him. He avoids confrontation, prefers to wait for storms to pass rather than weather them directly. This quality, which seemed like patience at first, now feels like avoidance. How many problems did he leave unaddressed in his marriage to Petra? How many will he leave unaddressed with me? But here's what I keep coming back to. Despite everything, despite the guilt and the complications and the uncertainty, when Thomas holds me at night, I feel safe. When he laughs at my jokes, I feel seen. When he talks about our future, even though that future is unclear, I feel hope. Is that enough? Can love built on betrayal ever be enough? I think about Petra alone in that apartment we all shared once. The apartment full of memories and ghosts. I think about her starting over at 35, explaining to friends and family why her marriage ended, dealing with the trauma of double betrayal. And I think about Thomas, caught between the life he had and the life he wanted, making choices that hurt everyone, including himself. And I think about me, the catalyst for all this destruction, the woman who came to Germany with nothing and somehow ended up with everything and nothing at the same time. Please, if this story resonated with you at all, subscribe to the channel. I share these experiences because I believe in honest storytelling, even when the truth is uncomfortable. Yesterday, Thomas suggested we try to move to a different city, maybe Berlin or Frankfurt, somewhere we could start fresh without the weight of the past following us. Part of me wants that escape desperately, but another part knows you can't outrun guilt. It follows you wherever you go, living in the spaces between heartbeats, in the quiet moments before sleep, in the face of every woman who reminds you of the friend you betrayed. So here I am, 6 months into this relationship that cost so much, wondering if the price was worth it. I'm 32 years old, living in a country where I don't belong legally, in a relationship born from destruction, trying to figure out if love can redeem us or if we're just two people clinging to each other because we're afraid of being alone with what we've done. The truth is, I don't have answers. I don't know if Thomas and I will make it. I don't know if my guilt will ever fade or if it will poison everything we try to build. I don't know if Petra will ever heal from what we did to her or if we've damaged her irreparably. I don't know if I'll be able to stay in Germany or if I'll be forced to leave, to start over somewhere else, alone. What I do know is this. Love is messy and complicated, and sometimes it asks us to make choices that hurt people we care about. That doesn't make those choices right, but it makes them human. We're all just trying to find happiness in a world that doesn't make it easy, making mistakes, hurting each other, hoping that somehow it all works out in the end. Now I'm asking you, what would you do in my place? If you had to choose between a deep connection and loyalty to a friend, what would you choose? If you had the chance to go back, knowing what you know now, would you make different choices? Or would you do it all again, accepting the pain as the price of feeling truly alive? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I read every single one, and I need to know. Am I the villain in this story? Or am I just human? Am I unforgivable? Or am I someone who made a terrible choice in pursuit of something real? And if you haven't already, please subscribe to this channel. Your support helps me keep sharing these raw, honest stories. Hit that notification bell so you never miss an update, because this situation continues to evolve, and I'll be here, telling you the truth, no matter how ugly it gets. Thank you for listening to my story. Thank you for not judging, or if you are judging, thank you for doing it after hearing me out. We're all just trying to navigate this complicated thing called life, making choices, living with consequences, hoping that somehow, despite everything, we end up okay. So tell me, what would you do in my place?